Christmas was always supposed to be about family, forgiveness, and love. At least, that's what my grandfather believed. Every December, he transformed his old country house into a place filled with warmth. The fireplace crackled from morning until midnight, homemade cinnamon cookies covered every table, and the smell of roasted turkey drifted through every room. Even after I became an adult, walking through his front door felt like stepping back into the safest place I'd ever known. But the Christmas after Grandpa passed away was different. His chair at the head of the table sat empty. No one dared move it, yet somehow everyone avoided looking at it. The silence between conversations felt heavier than the snow piling up outside. I had spent the previous 6 months grieving while trying to settle his affairs. Grandpa and I had always shared a special bond. After my parents divorced, he was the one who taught me how to ride a bike, helped me with homework, and reminded me that character mattered far more than money. He wasn't wealthy by billionaire standards, but he had worked hard his entire life. He owned several rental properties, a family farm, investment accounts, and the beautiful home where every Christmas memory had been made. The reading of his will had surprised everyone. To my complete shock, Grandpa left nearly everything to me. He explained his decision in a handwritten letter that the attorney read aloud. Grandpa wrote that I had been the only grandchild who visited without expecting anything in return. I spent weekends repairing fences with him, drove him to doctor's appointments, celebrated birthdays, and simply listened whenever he wanted to tell stories about his younger years. He said an inheritance wasn't a reward, it was a responsibility entrusted to the person he believed would honor the family's legacy. I cried through most of the letter. Not because of the money. Because hearing his words one last time felt like losing him all over again. The rest of the family didn't react the same way. My older brother, Ryan, stared at me with an expression I had never seen before. My aunt folded her arms so tightly they almost disappeared beneath her sweater. My uncle wouldn't even make eye contact. By the time we left the lawyer's office, I could already feel invisible lines being drawn between us. No one congratulated me. No one asked how I was doing. Instead, whispered conversations stopped every time I entered the room. Then came Christmas dinner. I almost didn't go. Part of me knew something was wrong, but another part desperately wanted to believe that the holidays would remind everyone of Grandpa's values. I convinced myself that grief was making people act differently and that, with enough time, we'd heal together. I couldn't have been more wrong. As I arrived carrying the pecan pie Grandpa used to love, everyone greeted me with smiles that felt rehearsed. My mother hugged me a little too tightly. Ryan patted me on the shoulder without saying much. Even my aunt complimented my sweater, which she had criticized every other year. The kindness felt strange. Almost planned. Dinner began peacefully enough. We talked about Christmas movies, childhood memories, and the weather. Laughter echoed through the dining room, but it sounded forced, like actors following a script instead of family sharing a meal. Halfway through dessert, my uncle tapped his fork against his glass. "I think this is the perfect time," he announced. The room instantly fell silent. Ryan reached beneath his chair and pulled out a large manila envelope. He slid it across the table until it stopped directly in front of me. "What's this?" I asked. My mother smiled nervously. "Sweetheart," she began, "we've all been talking, and we think this is the fairest solution." I looked around the room. Every pair of eyes was fixed on me. Inside the envelope were legal documents. Property transfer forms. Bank authorization papers. Inheritance reassignment agreements. At the very top was a signature line with my name already printed beneath it. Ryan leaned forward. "All you have to do is sign." I laughed, thinking it had to be some terrible joke. No one laughed back. "You inherited everything," my aunt said calmly. But Grandpa didn't realize how much the rest of us sacrificed over the years. My uncle nodded. "This estate belongs to the whole family, not just one person." Ryan folded his hands together. I've got 2 kids. College isn't getting any cheaper. You don't even need all this money. I stared at him in disbelief. So your solution is? I give you Grandpa's inheritance? Not just me, Ryan replied quickly. We'll divide everything equally. That's what Grandpa should have done. I looked down at the documents again. Someone had already highlighted every place where I needed to sign. Even a pen had been placed neatly beside my plate before dinner started. That's when I realized the invitation to Christmas dinner had never been about celebrating together. It had been an ambush. Every compliment. Every smile. Every warm conversation. It had all been carefully orchestrated to soften me before asking me to surrender the one thing Grandpa had intentionally entrusted to me. I slowly closed the folder and rested both hands on the table. No one spoke. The fire crackled softly in the living room as snow continued falling outside the windows. Then my mother broke the silence. Please don't make this difficult. I looked at her, then at Ryan, then around the table where the people I had loved my entire life waited for my answer. In that moment, I realized Christmas wasn't testing my generosity. It was testing whether I would honor my grandfather's final wish, or betray it just to keep the peace. I took a slow breath, looked directly at the signature line, and reached for the pen. Every eye at the table followed my hand as I reached for the pen. Ryan smiled for the first time that evening. My aunt quietly exhaled, clearly convinced the hardest part was over. Even my mother relaxed, as though she had been holding her breath all night. I picked up the pen, uncapped it, and held it over the signature line. The room became so quiet that I could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Tick. 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 Then I gently set the pen back on the table. I'm not signing. The words weren't loud, but they landed like thunder. Ryan's smile disappeared instantly. What? He asked, blinking. I said I'm not signing. My uncle leaned forward. Maybe you didn't understand what these papers are. I understood them perfectly. My aunt's polite expression vanished. Then why would you refuse? This is about family. I couldn't help but laugh, though there wasn't a trace of humor in it. Family? I repeated. You invited me to Christmas dinner under the pretense of celebrating together. Instead, you hid legal documents under the table and waited until dessert to pressure me into giving away Grandpa's life's work. No one answered. I continued. If this was really about family, someone would have called me weeks ago. We could have talked honestly. Instead, you planned an ambush. Ryan pushed his chair back with a loud scrape. Don't act like you're the victim. I wasn't. You inherited millions while the rest of us got scraps. Grandpa made that decision. He was old. Ryan snapped. He wasn't thinking clearly. The words hit me like ice water. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. My grandfather had remained sharp until the very end. He balanced his own finances, read 2 newspapers every morning, and could remember birthdays better than anyone else in the family. You don't believe that, I finally said quietly. Ryan avoided my eyes. You just don't want to accept that he chose differently than you expected. My mother suddenly stood up. Please, she begged. Don't let money destroy this family. I looked at her with disbelief. I'm not the one who brought legal paperwork to Christmas dinner. Silence filled the room again. Then my uncle reached into his jacket pocket and placed another envelope on the table. You should read this. Confused, I opened it. Inside were copies of utility bills, medical expenses, repair invoices, and handwritten notes listing thousands of dollars. My aunt pointed toward the papers. Those are expenses your brother paid over the years. Ryan nodded. I helped Grandpa financially. I carefully examined the documents. Something didn't make sense. Several receipts carried dates when Grandpa had been traveling with me in another state. Others listed repairs that I personally remembered helping him complete ourselves. One invoice claimed Ryan had replaced the farmhouse roof. I stared at it. That roof had never been replaced. Grandpa and I had repaired one section together just 2 summers earlier. I slowly looked up. These aren't accurate. Ryan folded his arms. What are you implying? I'm saying some of these bills are impossible. My uncle slammed his palm against the table. Are you calling your own brother a liar? Before I could answer, another voice interrupted. I believe that's exactly what they're saying. Everyone turned toward the doorway. Standing there was Mr. Henderson, Grandpa's attorney. For several seconds, nobody moved. What are you doing here? My aunt whispered. Mr. Henderson removed his snow-covered coat. I was invited. By who? He looked directly at me. Actually, by your grandfather. The room froze. Ryan laughed nervously. That's impossible. Grandpa passed away months ago. Mr. Henderson nodded. Yes. But before he died, he asked me to do something if a situation like this ever occurred. He carried a small locked briefcase to the dining table. I hoped I'd never need to bring this. My mother's face turned pale. What is that? Insurance. He unlocked the case. Inside was a sealed envelope with Grandpa's unmistakable handwriting. Across the front were 8 words. Open only if they ask for my inheritance. A chill swept through the room. Ryan's confidence disappeared. Mr. Henderson carefully broke the seal and unfolded several pages. There is also a flash drive, he said. My aunt frowned. A flash drive? Mr. Henderson nodded. Your grandfather recorded a video shortly before his passing. Ryan immediately interrupted. This is ridiculous. No, the attorney replied calmly. This is legally documented evidence. He plugged the flash drive into the television beside the fireplace. After a few moments, the screen flickered to life. There was Grandpa, sitting comfortably in his favorite chair, wearing the same red Christmas sweater he wore every December. For a moment, no one breathed. Seeing him alive again felt almost unreal. He smiled warmly at the camera. If you're watching this, he began, then I'm probably gone. My eyes instantly filled with tears. His voice sounded exactly the way I remembered. Steady. Gentle. Certain. Grandpa looked directly into the camera. And if this video has been opened, then someone in this family has tried to convince my grandchild to surrender the inheritance I intentionally left behind. The room fell completely silent. Ryan slowly lowered his eyes. Grandpa sighed softly. I suspected this might happen. Then he reached beside his chair and held up a small notebook. For the last 7 years of my life, I've written down every visit, every phone call, every favor, and every excuse. My heart skipped. I didn't do this because I wanted to judge anyone, Grandpa continued. I did it because I wanted the truth preserved after I was gone. The camera zoomed slightly closer. I know exactly who was there for me. He paused. And I know who only showed up when they thought something valuable was waiting. The color drained from Ryan's face. For the first time that night, I saw fear replace confidence. Because whatever Grandpa had recorded next, everyone at that table knew they might not like what they were about to hear.